Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Jadon Sancho could be returning to Manchester United this summer. What's that all about? Also, we've got breaking sound bites coming out from the CEO of Manchester United, Omar Barada, talking about the cost and length of how long this happy stadium's going to actually take to build and materialise. We'll delve into that as well. Also want to talk about Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments, actually. Did you see what he said? Did you hear what he said about if you're from Manchester, expect cheaper tickets, we'll charge more to people from London and Hong Kong? Has he read the room brilliantly or has he completely missed the boat? Is he a guy that's so lost in his billionaire wealth, he's got no idea about the modern world, modern cities in the UK, demographics, diversity, etc., etc.? We'll delve into that. Are you offended by that or are you applauding that? That is what he said. Basically, that if you're in Manchester, we want to look after you, but if you're not, you'll pay a little bit more if you're from Hong Kong or London. Incredible stuff. So I know a few people from London who drive up to watch United play every game. I know a few people from Dublin who fly over every game. They're not millionaires. They're just normal, ordinary working people who follow the club. And going to pay more as well for all their travel. Incredible. Anyway, let's get into it. Lots to get into. I should have that on a t-shirt. I need to stop saying it. Just before I get into it, a week tomorrow night, we're in Dublin for the live show in the international break. It's nearly sold out. Only 100 tickets left, 1,200 venue, and we've nearly sold it out. So if you're thinking about going, get your tickets while you can, scan the QR code or go through the link in the description. Thap says, we don't need Sancho. We don't need Sancho. So where's this coming from? Well, it's coming from Chris Wheeler in the Daily Mail, and he says there is still a possibility that Jadon Sancho could end up back at Manchester United this summer if Chelsea decide not to go through with the deal. It would cost Chelsea a significant penalty to pull out of the deal. I would describe this as, and I'm sure you know some people like this, they get into a relationship, they get pregnant, and then 6 months later, they decide, I'm not hanging around for this. It's not what I want. But there is still a child that is born and the child support agency are going to make you pay for it. You don't get away with it that easy. And I think that is how I would describe the Chelsea situation. I'm not saying they're being an irresponsible parent, but they signed the deal to take Jadon Sancho for £25 million if they finished in the top 14 in the Premier League. And they're going to do that. So if they are going to send Jadon Sancho back to us, they're going to bloody pay for it. And I'm quite relaxed about this. Chris Wheeler goes on to say another issue could be Sancho's contract with Chelsea. Players often agree terms with their new club before joining them on loan with a view to a permanent move, but it's understood Sancho has yet to do this. So basically, Freedom's let him down. Mr. Freedom may be out of favour at yet another football club in the Premier League. So I don't want Sancho back. And I'll tell you what, if Sir Jim Ratcliffe is trying to spin a positive about a new stadium and then he's going to bring Jadon Sancho back in the summer, then he'd be an absolute buffoon, bigger than we thought. So, look, we're not going to bring Sancho back. He's on ridiculous wages. I still think he's got a year left on his contract. But I would say that if Chelsea want to give him back, they're probably going to have to give us 10 million. So realistically, you'd be in a position where if he did come back, you'd just say, go and say, where's your kilt, William Wallace? Freedom, off your trot. We'll even give you the bus fare. We'll even call you an Uber. There's no point having him back. But if he's, look, I'm quite relaxed about this. Jokes apart, I'm not really that bothered. Chelsea signed a contract. If they don't want him, I understand it. He ain't that good. And he ain't that consistent. And maybe Chelsea don't think he's all that. In which case, they might look at the penalty and go, you know what, we'll pay the penalty and you can have him back. From our point of view, we don't want him either. But we'll get a bit more money out of Chelsea for it. And then we'll flog him off somewhere else. But there's no, look. One thing we've learnt in the last 24 hours is that this fan base can flip like a pancake on anything. I never thought after the protests on Sunday, same people saying Glazers out would be 24 hours later knocking one out to Sir Jim Ratcliffe's interview. And yet many of you did, as is your right. But I would never, ever sit here again and think that I can read this fan base. And I certainly think that if there was a prospect of Sancho coming back, we're definitely going to, I can picture some of them now. He's cooking. He's cooking. Sancho's coming back. Baller. Get him back in the team. Oh, he's going to cook in an Amorim system. So there definitely will be people that start talking about bringing him back, just the same they talk about bringing Pogba back, or they want to bring McTominay back, or whoever. There's a life lesson. Don't go back. Don't ever go back with an ex-girlfriend. Like, the reason you broke up will still be there after the honeymoon of going back with them. We shouldn't go anywhere near Jadon Sancho, and I don't think we would be stupid enough to do it anyway. And I actually don't think he would fit in under Amorim's system because he doesn't work hard enough. And I don't think that match-going fans would be, cheering his name or anything like that. So I think he will go back. I think if he comes back, I'm quite relaxed. I saw some people having a bit of a meltdown on social media, and I was just like, chill out. I'm normally the one to have a meltdown and be negative. I actually think this is fine. Chelsea are going to give us 25 million in the summer as part of the deal. If they don't do it, there's a penalty, which could be half of that. Could be 12 million. We still pocket 12 million. We only got to find another 12 from somebody. You're telling me someone's not going to take Jadon Sancho for 12 million? And he'll have to take a pay cut somewhere else. So, yeah, I'm quite relaxed about it. Tom sends the fan base has changed. Look, you know what, actually, just on that, I feel that we'll probably move around a little bit today. But if you didn't see what the 58 who did the protests had to say about what has happened with the announcement around the stadium, they basically are not particularly happy. In fact, I'll read out what they've said. Here it is. So we've got some quotes coming in from Barada as well. I also want to talk about that comment from Sir Jim. Also about the stadium, I've had some stuff coming through. I mean, we get so much stuff in. You know, some of it's well sourced. Some of it will just be people who are angry and frustrated. But effectively, what they've had to say, the 58, is who will pay for this build and how? No reference to history or tradition. Why? With the Glazer debt standing at 750 million, what impact will that have on funding? Will this fall on the fans and local community to subsidise over future generations? Will the Glazers be removed before the spade hits the soil? A stadium that reflects our industry and working class heritage, this is not. We've already initiated a strategy on finding out exactly what happened here, along with some other important questions. I think the concerns of the 58 are that Manchester United Football Club should be about dignity and tradition, and they've not been upheld. It should be a cathedral for fans to go and worship our team and not a circus tourist attraction. Once again, football taking a back seat. Where was the consultation? What does the supporter configuration look like? We don't need a copy of Wembley of the North with a pretend Wembley way. We need an Old Trafford of the North. And I think there's concerns around the... It's a circus-like aesthetic. It disregards the club's working class origins and identity of a fan base that spans generations, or honouring the past. It prioritises spectacle over substance, alienating those who've defined United's legacy for decades. It's an event stadium over a football stadium. It's a visitor experience over a fan opinion and needs. You know what? I think they make good points, and I think you make good points, and I think Terry made good points this afternoon. But I think actually I don't think they're wrong on that. It does look like a spectacle. It does look like an events area, but that's what they're selling. And look, people are going to disagree, but the interesting thing is I got a lot of kickback last night. I got a lot of people who agreed with me. The funny thing is, from what the 58 are saying, you know, they're sort of saying what we were saying last night as well. They see through the smoke and mirrors. They see through the spin. They see what it is. And it is dividing the fan base. So when Tom says the fan base has changed, Tom, it has. There are people out there that are absolutely ecstatic. They're really, really happy. I just wonder what they're going to do for the next 5 years. In fact, just on that, before I talk about Omar Barada, I must bring this in. So this quote from Sir Jim Radcliffe that some of you might have seen, I don't know whether it's been taken out of context or anything like that, but effectively it's words to the effect that I was a working class boy. I lived in a council house for 10 years. This is Sir Jim Radcliffe. And I understand, you know, what football is, and it's got to be accessible. And I want it to be accessible for the people of Manchester. So if you're in Manchester, you will get concessions on your tickets, but you know, people from Hong Kong and London will pay a little bit more. And I thought, hold on a minute, is this a billionaire who's been so accustomed to eating his caviar off a silver spoon? He's got absolutely no concept of what Manchester is now. Like, as I said, I get it, and I sort of throw it to you to get what your point is, because not all of you are going to be from Manchester, and I do go to Manchester quite regularly. Obviously, we've got a studio there, etc. And you walk around Manchester city centre or around Old Trafford, and it is a diverse city. It is not full of people who have lived in Manchester for 100 years and passed it down generations. There are people who've come in through immigration, business. It's a thriving city. So saying that you're going to give concessions to people who live in Manchester and people from London and Hong Kong are going to pay more, well, there'll be plenty of people in London who've supported Man United for 60, 70 years. They might have moved down there from Manchester. So they've got to travel up there and pay a little bit more. Whereas if you're in Manchester, and let's not forget, a lot of these apartments that they're going to build around Old Trafford ain't going to be bought by you and me. They're going to be bought by very rich people because they're going to go for hundreds of thousands. Are these rich Hooray Henrys going to get discounted tickets as well as part of moving into the area? So I'm a little bit like, I sort of understand where he might be coming from, but again, he's missed the target. Manchester is not what it was 50 years ago. It's not full of Mancs who've supported Man United on third generation who need a season ticket and need concessions. There is a lot of diversity in Manchester. There is a lot of transient populations in Manchester. It is a thriving city. You can't say if you're driving up the M6 from London or the M1, you're going to pay more as well as you travel. Or Dublin. You know, that to me is just missing the mark again. But look, if you're in Manchester, great. You're probably going to benefit, aren't you? What I've also been told tonight from a very good source is that they think it's complete and utter bullshit that this stadium will be built in 5 years. Now, I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe looks very confident that it will. But they're basically saying that there's already kickback from various constituencies and governmental departments on why Manchester United are basically being given a free ticket to build a stadium for themselves, but get all the infrastructure around it. Even Omar Barada has said tonight, we'll pay for the stadium, but there's no point doing it if we don't get the regeneration. So they go hand in hand. We will pay for our own stadium, but we won't build that unless we get everything else built around it. So there's a lot of kickback around that. There's a lot of people in the football industry and communities saying, who aren't Man United fans, saying, well, can we have a stadium? We'll build a stadium if everyone's going to build everything around it. So there's a lot of that. But also, more importantly, apparently there is some freight depot near Manchester United Stadium at the moment that they want to relocate to Warrington or something, which will clear more space for the regeneration. That's not even been signed off yet. So Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I think, is ready to start building, but there's quite a lot of things that might need to happen before that can happen. And obviously, it's going to be 5 years from the first day you put the shovel in the soil. So it could be 5 years, it could be 6 years, it could be 7 years, it could be 10 years. We'll have to wait and see. And I think, as many people said as well, I think with regards to this build, the announcement of it is probably because of the protests on Sunday. There wasn't actually any major reason for it to be announced today. Like, it's not like we're starting building next week. It was just like, we're going to do this. And maybe it was just brought forward because of what's been going on with the protests, etc. I've been sending super chats since 2018. I actually have nothing to say anymore regarding United. I'm just here for you, Mark. And Seb says, Parker, thank you very much. Mark Dennehy's gifted a membership. You're a legend, mate. I don't like Sir Jim. Too many interviews, too many at the end of the days. He comes off as a fraud, says Martin. Not freedom, more like freedom, says Nick Gossi. And just saw on ESPN where Barada said new stadium poses a risk to the squad's competitiveness, says Kevin. I want to talk about this actually very much next. And I'm going to read his quotes. Will be funny when the Glazers don't bother maintaining the new stadium. Let that fall into disrepair and rebuild a second time, says Robbo. I'd be very worried about the circus tent net effect, because that looks great on an image, but in reality, it's grey or white. It rains a lot in Manchester. That's going to get dirty and rusty very quick, and they don't like maintaining stadiums. Omar says new stadium may cost club competitiveness, says Dino. I'm going to read this then. So I'm moving to Greece. When I come to watch a game or two, I have to pay more. No thanks, says Ryan. I've been commenting on Man United's post trying to get attention back on the Glazers. I'm respectful in my comments, but they deleted 80% of them, says Brendan. Yeah, well, they will do, mate, because it's a dictatorship, isn't it? I went on the BBC today and they were talking about the stadium, and I think they were quite surprised about what I said. And I don't think it will get used because I've seen certain other content creators going, "Oh, it's about time we did it. Yeah, it's great. Manchester, we're getting a new stadium. It's mad, mad for it. It's great. Yeah." And I basically said, I'm not from Manchester, so, I'm just a Manchester United fan like millions of others. But what bothers me is I accept that we've got to build a new stadium, but nobody's talking about the crime as to why we've got to build a new stadium. I look at Anfield being renovated and regenerated and looked after, and they're never going to leave it. I look at Old Trafford and people are very happy to go, "Oh, shiny new toy, shiny new toy. Yeah, we need to change it, shiny new toy." But no one's looking at why we're changing it. If we'd looked after this stadium, there'd be nothing wrong with it. Old Trafford would have been here for generations, but they let it rust because they always wanted to do this. And everyone's going, "Oh, shiny new toy, shiny new toy." And you're falling into the Glazer trap. They purposely let the stadium fall into disrepair. You're all there going, "Oh, look at the mice. Look at the leaks." They're going, "How long? How long is it going to be before we can tell them about the new stadium?" And they all start following us. It was all part of the bloody plan. And nobody's talking about that. Not even Sir Alex Ferguson's talking about that. Anyway, let's talk about what Omar Barada has said, because I do want to talk tonight a little bit about the transfer budget, because I have concerns about it. I was actually reading an article today in the Manchester Evening News. It wasn't from you know who. And basically what they said is that, you know what journalists are like. They've all been invited to have a look at the plans in a private meeting today. So they're all knocking one out because they've got access again. They did it with Ten Hag, they did it with Ollie, they did it with Mourinho, and they did it with Amorim. And they're already writing hit pieces on Amorim. But because they get invited to meet Amorim, they're like, "Oh, hello, Amorim." Oh. But anyway, so they've all had a look at the plans, and they're all well over the moon, and they're all client journalists anyway. So of course they're all like, "Oh, I'll write you something good." And they're basically saying that the bottom line is this stadium will be game-changing for Manchester United. It will make them a big competitor again. And one of the journalists in the Manchester Evening News even wrote, "Well, if the United have got to give up being competitive for a few years, then it'll be worth it in the long run." What have we become, people? What have we become as a football club? It's okay to give up competitiveness for a few years so the Glazers can build a thing that's going to make them rich. I mean, fundamentally, we've got to build a new stadium, but bloody hell, giving up competitiveness so they can build it. And that's probably the truth, because we're already in debt. We're not a football club that's taking on a little bit of debt. We're already in debt, aren't we? So let's have a look at what Omar Barada has had to say. He said some things about the team, and he said, "Look, we don't want to inhibit our ability to invest in the team for us to continue being competitive while we're building a new stadium. There are various ways around that. One of the things we're looking at is to shorten the construction timelines so we can have a new stadium within 5 years. That's our ambition." So obviously they're trying to I can't find this quote about where he says that. I'm going to find out about this. Where is he said stadium will impact transfers? Because I actually can't see it, but a few people are saying that. He says, "We don't want to inhibit our ability to invest in the team for us to continue being competitive while we're building a new stadium." So he said, we don't want to do that. We don't want to inhibit our ability to invest in the team for us to continue being competitive while we're building this new stadium. He also goes on to say that on recruiting players who suit Ruben Amorim's needs, I think it's riskier if you have a coach that doesn't have a clear idea how he wants to play. And with Ruben, we don't see that risk. And when it comes to our recruitment strategy, without commenting too much, but the idea we have is to be able to bring in versatile players that can be adaptable to multiple systems. Okay, well, look, that is a positive. I'm never going to lie away from the positives. I thought that the summer transfer window was not that bad. So if they're going to find money again, I'll wait to see if that's going to happen. How are they going to fund the stadium? These are all direct quotes from Barada, so I'm reacting to them as well. What you heard yesterday was about the need to do a cost adjustment. So the way the club was tracking with all the losses that have been accumulated, more than 300 million in the last 5 years, was not sustainable. I mean, that's not answered. A lot of buzzwords then, a lot of PR. On whether the current stadium will stay, he says it's unlikely. Well, we know it's getting knocked down. Let me see if I can find you this quote, because a lot of people are actually going mad about it in the chat, saying he's definitely said it, Mark. Well, I don't want to not give it you. But I can't find it, so I'll have to just bow down to you. We don't have competitiveness. James O'Hanlon says, we don't have competitiveness to give up, do we? Says James O'Hanlon. We're literally becoming Everton in every way, says Mark. Don't be fooled by plans, only action matters, says Alan. Do we actually know when this will actually start? Will it be this year or in a few years? I've covered that, Mark, and how long's a piece of string? There are some people thinking that it might take a bit of time. Lorenzo says, positives are always a great sign, but how the patience can hurt you is also real. Yeah, look, I think you make a very, very good point. Like, it's like having a prison sentence and saying it's only 5 years instead of 10 years. Yeah, it's half what you could have got, but you've still got to sit there and serve the sentence. And I'm certainly not going to be one of those people that's going to fake it and pretend that waiting around for 4 or 5 years to see if this works is going to be easy. It's going to be horrific. As I said to Terry earlier on, 5 years ago was the start of COVID. That feels like a lifetime ago. You know, Seb was a baby 5 years ago. It's like 5 years is a long time. And yeah, I think that it's all fine and well going, we've got this amazing stadium potentially in 5, 6, 7 years' time. But in 2 days' time, we might be out of Europe staring into oblivion financially. So, yeah, I mean, the stadium, somebody mentioned this and it got me thinking. Imagine where this football club would be if this regeneration project wasn't happening. And there's your answer to anything that you want. Imagine what would happen to this football club if there was no regeneration project. It wouldn't be that picture you've seen today with its fake Wembley Way and, you know, it wouldn't happen. We absolutely are being rescued by this regeneration project because it provides the focal point to the stadium. If we didn't have that regeneration project, we'd be done. What would we do? What would we do? Shane says, "Why being toxic?" Mate, goodbye. It's not mate. It's not. We've been live for like 25 minutes. Nothing's been toxic. We're discussing our football club. Go away. Another bot. Goodbye. So yeah, look, this regeneration project is basically our Lord Saviour, isn't it? It's going to rescue this football club because if we didn't have it, all we'd have is the debt and what we've got on the pitch, and somebody would have to throw money in. It's going to rescue the Glazers, but it's hopefully going to rescue the football club, and it's all we got. Michael says, we're being gaslighted big time. Hate the new stadium. It ain't Old Trafford, and we're being distracted by bullshit. I hate this ownership. Thank you very much, Michael. Appreciate that. Sorry, it's frozen again now, but I have got the quote. Let me get it for you now. So here it is. Barada on if the plan is to open the stadium for 2030-31. Yes. Okay. That's the plan. Yeah. Well, I think we all know that plan. I don't think that's the one I'm meant to be reading. Okay, got it now. Barada on if the stadium will have an impact on recruitment and performances on the pitch. He said, I wouldn't agree. So this is the big quote everyone's talking about. Will the stadium have an impact on transfers and performances on the pitch? He says, I wouldn't agree with that. We're trying to put ourselves in the best financial position to be able to invest in our team and make it better. We're not necessarily going to be investing significant amounts, but that's going to be out of choice because we want to manage our football costs more efficiently. Our number one goal is to get our teams winning and to get the men's team competing for all the titles consistently. We're not going to deviate from that. Okay, hands up. 25 minutes into the show, we probably just hit the wood there, haven't we? Whatever that means. No, we've not hit the wood. Definitely not in that sense. Yeah, that is massively concerning. I would agree. So apologies, I didn't have that. That's really concerning because it's all about planning to do this. We're wanting to do this. We plan to do this. And all I ever think about with plans is who owns the football club, the Glazers. What did Ed Woodward used to say? What did Richard Arnold used to say? What did Ollie used to say? What did Jose used to say? In 3 years, in 3 years, in 3 years, we want to do this. I've heard this for 10 years. We want to win titles. We want to compete. If you could be asked, you could go and Google Moyes titles, Van Gaal titles, Woodward Premier League titles. Just type in these things. Ed Woodward Premier League titles, Richard Arnold Premier League titles, Joel Glazer Premier League titles. You will get multiple articles over the last 10 years, dotted along the last 10 years, where our aim is to win Premier League titles consistently or win the Champions League consistently. We've been told this for 10 years. So unfortunately for our new CEO, we've seen this movie many times before. So when he says we plan to do this or we want to do that, well, you know, as a kid, I planned to play for Manchester United, scoring hat-tricks every week and win the World Cup with England, you know. I also was going to have a number one album. And, yeah, I planned a lot. Never happened. So planning, whatever. Where you get the meat on the bone is when you read things that aren't planning. And he said, look, we're not necessarily going to be investing significant amounts. So we are going to try and be financially profitable so we can invest in the team, but we're not necessarily going to be investing significant amounts. That's our choice. We want to manage our football costs more efficiently. So I think what you're basically getting there is that we want to invest in the team, but we're not going to invest a lot because we don't want to spend a lot of money on our football operations. So, you know, some of you might agree with that. I would say point me in the direction of a Premier League winning side that consistently challenges for the title that doesn't spend significant money. I mean, Declan Rice cost 100 million quid. Havertz cost 65 million quid. Arsenal haven't won the league yet. Chelsea have spent 2 billion in 2 years. They haven't won the league yet. People say, what about Liverpool? Liverpool spent a lot of money. They were fortunate that they sold Coutinho for 150 and that helped. I mean, there's the Pratt in the chat again. Football says Liverpool. Liverpool have spent fucking loads of money, mate. Did Alisson just knock on the door and say, can I come in? They've spent bloody loads. Alexi McAllister, Gravenberch. Van Dijk cost them 75 million quid. Oh, Liverpool haven't spent any money? No! They all speak with a Scouse accent and came through the youth setup. Come on. Liverpool did spend money. They were very fortunate that they could sell players for a lot of money as well. But and it was a very long project with Liverpool as well. But I think in the modern game, you've got to spend money. And if we haven't got the money, then we can't spend the money. So maybe that is a bit of a concern. But what also struck me was what Sir Jim Radcliffe said about, and Omar Barada said, about we want the club to be the most profitable club in England in 3 years' time. I think this is a smokescreen again. I don't think it actually matters. Like, if you're the most profitable club, it doesn't mean you've got the most money available. It doesn't correlate to that. Profitability in football is a myth. Like, nobody buys a football club to make money. It's one of the oldest sayings in the world. Like, you don't buy a football club to make money. So talking about profit for the football club, if you really want to make profit, stop paying debt interest, as we all know. But I was looking at profit and loss for 22-23. And you can find other years, but the most profitable club at the end of the tax year for 2023 was Brighton, 133 million. Second place was Man City with a profit of 80 million. And third place was Bournemouth with a profitability of 44 million. So it's just because you're profitable, you might make a profit of 30 million quid. It doesn't mean that you can go and buy Mbappe. we need to get to a more sustainable position, and we need to stop spending stupid money on things. But the number one thing is the debt interest, isn't it? So I do have concerns about that statement, and fair play for bringing it in, that we've got a CEO that says we're not going to spend that much money because we don't want to. And I am entitled, as you are entitled, to say something opposite. I don't think you can sustainably challenge. I mean, look, what did it say? What did he say? Our goal is to get our teams winning and to get the men's team competing for titles consistently. I think that is absolutely unachievable. So in the same paragraph, we're not necessarily going to be investing significant amounts. We want to manage our football costs, but our aim is to compete for titles consistently. I don't think you can compete for titles consistently without spending a lot of money. So, yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to go down the road again. I want to get into some of your comments, but let's be clear. Man United are shit. We're in the bottom half of the table. We're clinging on to the hope of European football on Thursday night. The football's not great. The squad's not great. The ownership's not great. But in 5 years' time, there might be an amazing stadium. There's this huge grey area in between. We know if they start building it, it's being built. We can see it being built. But what's going to go on the pitch for 5 years? That nobody can answer at the moment. But the CEO is saying there's not going to be massive investment in the team because that's what we don't want to do. I call bullshit. I think if you haven't got money, the best thing you can say publicly is, yeah, we haven't got any money, but guess what? Even if we had it, we wouldn't spend it. So I call bullshit. I think he's basically saying, yeah, we're not going to spend much money, but we didn't want to anyway. That was not our plan. Like, we want to do it a different way. We don't want to spend a lot of money. Whereas actually, I think the truth is they know they're not going to have any fucking money. So they've got to spin that into, we don't want to spend money anyway. You know, it's like when you were a kid and, you know, someone's walking around in a nice pair of trainers and you're walking around in your uncle's that have been passed down, and you go, I don't want your Nike Air trainers anyway. I'm quite happy with these old slippers. So, yeah, look, I think the summer transfer window, and not just this one, the next 2 or 3 are going to be very interesting. I would demand that any manager that comes into Manchester United in their first summer transfer window should be getting north of 200 million quid. I don't know whether I can say that will happen, but he is a new manager with a completely different system of play to what we actually have. He must be invested in this summer. But we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. Some people are actually saying, I'm happy for us not to spend money for the next few years because when we get the stadium, it'll be fine. I have a little bit of a life lesson here. Live for today because tomorrow may never come. In everything, live for today because tomorrow may never come. It's the now that matters. And don't wish your life away. And certainly don't write off 5 years of this football club on the whim and promises of people who have led us down for 20 years. So I think the real meat in this is not when the stadium's going to be built, is what we're going to do for 5 years. People are thinking 5 years is going to go like that. It's 5 seasons. Liverpool could win 5 titles. We could not be in Europe for 5 years. We might be in mid-table for 5 years. I think there has to be a plan to be a proper football club before that stadium is built. We can't bet it all on a new stadium. We can't. Dafe says Mark's contradicting himself. If they can't make profit, which you're criticising, so how can they sign players and keep the club running? No, mate, you just don't. You're not very adept at understanding how football clubs are run. 80%, probably 90% of the football clubs in the Premier League don't turn a profit. They will still spend money in the summer. Arsenal don't turn a profit. They still spent £100 million on Declan Rice. You're just somebody that thinks you need to make profit to spend money on players. You don't. You literally don't. Most football clubs don't turn a profit. You don't need to be profitable to spend money. You just need to operate within the parameters of FFP and PSR. You don't have to be a profitable football club to sign players. That's what I'm saying. I thought I'd explained it clearly enough, but obviously not. Most football clubs, and if I go back to 2023, Brentford, Liverpool, West Ham, Fulham, Palace, Leeds, Arsenal, Wolves, Forest, Newcastle, Southampton, Everton, Leicester, Chelsea, Tottenham, Aston Villa, Manchester United all made a loss. Did they all spend nothing that following summer? Did they, bollocks? It's revenue that helps you spend, not profitability. Revenue's the thing. I'd love to think that this regeneration plan will work out, but 2 plus 2 equals 4. Everything we've seen doesn't match what they're telling us. Using less money and hypothetical winning team, does that make sense? As Boo Boo. Look, I agree with that theory. I think if you don't spend money, you're not successful in football. I'd love to be proved wrong. And maybe, 20 years ago, if you'd said pet ball, people wouldn't have known what you're on about. So, at least the Carrington investment is somewhat exciting. So Jim said they'd pump 50 million to that project and it should have an impact on the pitch, says Julius. Bigger stadium for more seats to charge £66 for, says King. How does one gift memberships and what's the record? I'm thinking of gifting 10 each time we pass the Europa League stage, says Bashir. You'd have to speak to Mojo on that. He does 50 quite regularly. That netting over the new stadium is to protect the last trophies that we'll ever win, says Chronicles of a Gamer. And WFH today, listening to your podcast, I have a question about our transfer budget. Why don't we find players like Matoma for cheap from small teams? Well, this is the thing, DV, 100%. You could buy 6 players in the summer for under £100 million. Like this, I'm not saying that we can't buy players, but we'd need to have amazing scouting. Let's hope we can do it. That Shane guy talking absolute shit. Who's Tactics is Michael. Trendy FC. I'm from LA and I've seen this happen with the LA Rams in the NFL. Say goodbye to small businesses and the youth academy, says Alex. Andre says, Ineos have an idea. For me, they have an idea of how to make profit, not win. Road to hell is paved with good intentions. Profit equals to success on the pitch, says Andre. Bashir says, what do you think we'd be talking about if the Glazers never bought the club, and where would we be? I think we'd be winning things, mate. I mean, I feel like we've had a life sentence with the Glazers. 20 years already, and we're definitely going to get another 20 years. And, mate, what the Glazers have basically done is took a profitable football club. And when I say profit, I mean revenue, huge, self-sustained, profitable football club, whatever you want to call it. We had money and we made it. And they basically piled all their debt on us and dragged us down for 20 years. So if we hadn't had the Glazers, we'd have had a shitload of money of our own. Guess people with their kids and grandkids aren't watching games at Old Trafford is meaningless now, says Pizza. Michael JW's gifted a membership. Not sure if it's been said, but we might never play a Champions League game at this Old Trafford again, says Matt. Come on, we're being... Thank you very much to Michael. Right, I've got a match to watch. I've just realised. Get your tickets for Dublin. We've nearly sold out. Going to be a great show next week. Fantastic show tonight. More led by the stuff that you've brought in, so I really appreciate that as always. If you're not watching live, get your comments in as always. And I'm going to be over on That's Football watching a game of football called Liverpool against PSG in the Champions League. You might not know what it is as a Man United fan, and you might not know what it is for quite a while, but basically the best teams in England get to play in this European competition and play against the best best teams in Europe. And they're quite good games because it's the best teams from France and Italy and Spain and England. They all play together. Then they get into a knockout stage and Liverpool are playing PSG now. You earn about £100 million from being in it. So it's massively profitable as well. We did actually win it in 08 and 09 and 99 in my lifetime as well. But yeah, for some of you, you probably don't know what it is. So tune into That's Football, because that's the only place you're going to see a watch along for a Champions League for any time soon. Take care, everybody. It is amazing, Nathan. It would be great if Manchester United took it seriously as well, but we're too busy building blocks. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care.